It gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Stacey Adams. Stacey facilitates professional development courses for the local Washington Teachers Union and is a national trainer for the American Federation of Teachers. Stacey has always championed the needs of children, with a special interest in students of color. Currently, she is co-authoring the AFT's anti-racist module with Dr. Lisa Thomas from the AFT. Stacey's activism on behalf of children is astounding. No wonder today Stacey can tell us we are our best advocates and it is time to speak up. Stacey?
Thank you so much, Dr. Larock. Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, fine day to you there. Whatever time of day it is that you happen to be watching this recording, welcome. Welcome indeed. I hope that you are finding yourself in a comfortable place with a pen and a pad so you can take some notes, so you can jot some things down, so you can look back at it and remember the things you've learned today, remember the things you've thought about today, and use that knowledge to carry on your voice as indeed we are our best advocates. And it is time to speak up. Today's lesson is about that, being advocates. So I say to you, hello, advocate. We are here because we believe in the power of education. I am here on behalf of the children. They need your help. My name is Stacey Adams. You can continue to find me or reach me at staceyadams.gov@gmail.com. I'm very thankful to be a part of today's activities. Thank you to Dr. Larock. Thank you to opportunities from Dr. Lisa Thomas, from support from friends like Dr. Malik Burnett and Miss Amanda Desir. Today's opportunity carries through with the mission of the American Federation of Teachers. As a national trainer, I signed on to work with this organization because I believe in high quality public education, because I believe in political activism, because I believe that it is time to advocate. I'm thankful to be part of this 50th celebration. Okay, CBC, 50 years. Amazing, fantastic. More opportunities to advocate. Once upon a time, I was an international educator. And at that time, or after that time, shall I say, I came back to the United States looking for ways to grow, looking for ways to learn, looking for ways to explore. One of my friends said, hey, Stacey, why don't you come on down to DC? Because I'm from Pittsburgh. Why don't you come on down to DC and go to this Congressional Black Caucus annual legislative conference? And I was like, what's that? So I went to this new attendees session. And while at this new attendees session, I met the writer of this article that you see in front of you. When I was speaking with this author, with this writer, she asked me, why I was here. And I told her, I'm here to learn, to observe, to talk, to meet. I read a lot while I was away, but I wasn't here, so I haven't been able to be an active community member myself. Now, I'm here. That was 2015. This is 2021. And I cannot be more thrilled to have this opportunity to talk to you about the things that I've learned, the things that I've seen, and to tell you how you too, if you're not already, can be an advocate. How you too, if you are already, can up your game in advocacy. I took some time to reflect upon various components, various titles, various themes from CBC. And I took it all the way back to 2015 when I got here and stretched it out until today's theme. So in 2015, we started with liberty and justice for all. Then we started defining the moment and building the movement, not sinking, because, and still I rise. Our dream continues on, and even through looking, in some cases, feeling like we're underwater, our legacy and possibilities continue to grow. Last year, we talked about how it was our time, but this year, we're talking about pressing onward in power. You see, because we've been gaining this momentum, but the time to speak up, the time to speak out is now. Taking a look at some of the things we're going to be discussing today, we see that we're going to be talking about becoming or being or thriving through this idea of an educational advocate. Dr. Larock gave an introduction for me, and she let you all know that, yes, I've been an educator. This is now my 20th year of teaching. Woo, woo. And I've taught all around the globe, 6 continents, more than 25 countries. And my job title has changed since graduating from Spelman College as a teacher and moving on to become an international educator and coming back to the United States to be an urban educator. And now, while studying for my doctorate degree at the University of Pittsburgh, I'm learning there's a little more to this idea of urban education than the group of people that I know really need us to be their advocate. So now, when someone says, what do you do? I tell them, I'm a child advocate for the children of the global majority. Today, we're going to be talking, about the topics that you see here on this screen. Reimagined curriculum. What does that look like? Re-examined evaluation systems, redesigned classrooms, but rebuilding our educational structures. When we think about reimagined curriculum, I'm immediately drawn to my mentor for this fabulous opportunity, Dr. Larock. She says, the structures we have aren't necessarily bad, but are they preparing us for the future? And so when we talk about curriculum, we look at Zaretta Hammond, a fellow teacher. Thank you for your work. Dr. Gloria Ladson-Billings, who began the fight that Zaretta Hammond is pushing. We can look into concepts that we've heard since the early part of the century. Heidi Jacobs' 21st century curriculum. And she asks, what century are we preparing our students for? Will Richardson, who beams about the necessity for technology in instruction. We can reflect back on 2020 with Principal Kafele when he talks about the power in us. He reminds us to first recognize the power within ourselves as an individual, but let us not forget about what that individual situation looks like when we come together for the collective. It's huge. And now here we are with me, Stacey Adams, reminding you that we are our best advocates. And like my dad used to say, no, he still says, it's go time. It's time. This is the time. We're supposed to be using our voice, supposed to be using our platform in order to create change so that our students can propel. With that in mind, and still thinking of the idea of reimagined curriculum, I take you to this question. And I ask you to think about this at this time, knowing that we are going to reflect on this at a later time in the presentation. Are we preparing our children with adequate protection for the future? Yes or no? Simple. There is no maybe on this one. There is no depends on this one. You have to pick one or the other. Yes, we are preparing the children with adequate protection, or no, we're not. You see, I've got this image here of sunscreen. I was joking with the producers of this recording before we began, and I was asking, is anyone taking a vacation? You know, we're educators. Where did you go? Have you kicked it on the beach? Au contraire. We're working. We're in the trenches. We're preparing to advocate because this is our time. And we know that if we don't use this time to prepare for that time, we won't be ready to go. So according to the Aspen Institute, in 2018, they produced the National Commission on Social-Emotional and Academic Development. And this excerpt, this quote that you see here comes from A Nation at Risk to a Nation at Hope, published in 2018. It says, as big as it is, I'm gonna read it. Social and emotional learning benefits all children of every background, but it disproportionately benefits children from low-income communities, many of whom experience trauma and adversity resulting from insecure access to housing, food, healthcare, and safety. And so just like the children in the picture opening this book, I imagine that they're reading this quote and they're wondering, if this is the secret that's hidden within the book, we should share it. We should speak about it. We should become advocates for this message because now is the time to speak up. I told you I had this picture here of sunscreen in reference to this question because I liken the analogy of sunscreen to that of SEL, to that of mental health education, of which social emotional learning is part of. Mental health education, of which life skills, training, development, and understanding for our upper secondary students, it's a part of it. Imagine this. If we properly and intentionally applied SEL, mental health education, practices, strategies, understandings, as much as we properly and intentionally apply sunscreen, we might avoid being burned by the environment. See, because there's this study, there are these, not just one, but several studies which talk about social emotional learning, mental health education, and how imperative it is for low socioeconomic students, for students who are coming from impoverished backgrounds, from students who are coming from defunded educational structures. So it's like summertime. We're not going to the beach, but we can at least pretend and think about those who might be. Or maybe you have. Let's pretend, let's say, it's a 99-degree day outside. There's two people who go and hang out on the beach. One of those people is a very fair-skinned person. The other person has quite rich, dark skin. Let's say both of these people head on out to the beach and they're out there, it's 99 degrees and they're kicking it and they're hanging out and uh-oh, forgot the sunscreen. That person with the very fair skin who's been outside now in this 99-degree weather, this 99-degree heat, after 3 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours of being in that sun, they may find that their skin is red, sore, burning, painful, perhaps even blistering and bubbling with pus. The darker, rich-skinned person, they might have to remember their sunscreen when they go out tomorrow. You see, nowadays in 2021, the idea of putting on sunscreen is not taboo. We put it on. It's summertime. You're going outside, and studies have shown that sunscreen is good for everybody. It helps all people to avoid cancer issues with skin, to avoid pain, to avoid being burned by the environment. However, sunscreen is going to benefit the more fair-skinned, shall I say, Caucasian person than it is to benefit the darker-skinned, shall I say, Black person. Do they both need the sunscreen? Yes. Has research and scientists, have they all said, you need sunscreen? Yes. But does one person benefit much more from the sunscreen? Yes. Same is true with mental health education, specifically social and emotional learning. We have students who are in a majority white, community, school community, versus students who are in a majority Black school community. A majority, shall I say, low income community. Can both students benefit from mental health education and social emotional learning? Absolutely. Should both groups of students get it, social emotional learning and mental health education? Darn skippy. But guess what? Just how sunscreen might benefit the person of a more fair complexion way more. Mental health, social emotional learning. These things have been shown, proven, tried, and tested to help out those students who are coming from disenfranchised environments. Those students who experience the pair of aces, if you will, from last year's 2020 conversation. Adverse childhood experiences, adverse community environments. Mental health education and social emotional learning can work with these students in order to help them to propel themselves even further. Here we're looking at various practices that are employed around our country. These are different SEL programs. Now, I'm a 4th grade elementary school teacher in Ward 7 of Washington, D.C. And so my research in and around my practice involves here middle childhood. If this 5 to 11 is not your game space, I encourage you to look into what are the offers, the opportunities for children in your game space. Each of these has pros and cons. Each of these has been created in order to help children adjust with the changes that are happening in their immediate environment and those that are also happening in the macro culture surrounding their world. But even within all of these systems, which I've talked about each and every one of them in turn, not to mention in DCPS, we use one of these systems. Each of them has something good. Each of them has something not so great. Each of them is supposed to be, the idea is to address cognitive, social, emotional, academic, behavioral. But of those 5 components, you know only this one here in the top right in the yellow puzzle piece, Mind Up. That's the only program that thus far has been indicated as reaching all 5 of those components. That piece of knowledge and this information presented to you on the screen comes from the Promoting Social and Emotional Competencies in Elementary School. You see the resource, the reference here at the bottom of the page. You might also note the indication in the middle of the page. As a student in the doctoral program for the University of Pittsburgh, or at the University of Pittsburgh, in studying urban education, a professor boasted this slide probably about a month ago during our summer session. And I said, 136. We've got to narrow it down. We've got to figure it out. We've got to get this together so that we can get our students moving forward. If this is the secret in the middle of the book, hello, advocates. Yeah, that's you. Let's dig into this. Let's find out what's working and why it's not, and change and correct, so that we're reimagining the curriculum that our students need. Next. Moving on through. Our students, teachers, administrators, adequately assessed, or are we over evaluating outdated information with antiquated practices? Notice my sunglasses because we have this whole beach theme going on. And so if you, like me, have not had a chance to make it to the beach this summer, hopefully you're living vicariously through my slides. Looking through this lens here of these sunglasses, how are we doing with our assessment on all levels? When we re-examine, because that's what I'm asking us to do here today, is to begin to take a lens, to begin to take a stab at re-examining our evaluation system. So, disclaimer for this entire presentation. I have less than an hour to talk to you about all of the things we could possibly advocate for to help our children to thrive. So if I don't cover what it is you're thinking about in the back of your mind, that's okay. It doesn't mean it's not important. It doesn't mean that you should shh about it. What that means is you should get loud about it. Advocate for that. My purpose here today is to ignite a spark that makes you want to get up, get out, and do something. So we've talked about reimagined curriculums, and now we're looking at our evaluation system. So you notice on the previous slide, I talked about students, teachers, and administrators. I've not been an administrator. I've been a student and I've been a teacher. So if there are administrators who are listening to this convo out there, I encourage you to speak up, to advocate. We're re-examining this evaluation system, and I'm looking at it through the lens of teachers and students. Are these all the possibilities underneath the umbrella of teachers? No, because I have less than an hour. Are these all the possibilities underneath the heading of students? No, these are things to give you an idea to help you move forward. So ideas for students, right? Let's look at that side first. When we're assessing our students, the way that our system is currently set up, it's to look at learning gaps in order to identify what students cannot do. This is a deficit model. When we come to re-examine our evaluation systems and to create change in assessment and policy, what about looking at things through a different lens? Remember those sunglasses? Looking at learning strengths of which to build upon instead of a learning deficit of which to fill. You ever thought about that? When I check my students' papers, I'm marking what's wrong. I haven't, in the past, marked what's right. A little change like that. And already, you're an advocate. Now go tell a fellow teacher to try the same business, and you're a moving advocate. When we look at the teacher side of this diagram, we look at docked points or docked pay versus, okay, you've earned yourself an extra PD, okay? You've earned yourself the opportunity to come to my Managing Behaviors in School Communities class, which I teach for the Washington Teachers Union, and also as a national trainer for the American Federation of Teachers. Come on in, take a seat. Let me help you help them. Or maybe you're signing in to I call her Dr. Roz, signing into Dr. Larock's class. SSS, Strategies for Student Success. Or are you totally focused on the points that may have been deducted from your overall score, which is inhibiting you from being able to not only grow through your pay scale, but maybe it's taking you back a step? Are we hurting or helping through our evaluation systems? What's the point? What are we exactly trying to do here? What is the role? Are we trying to motivate or stagnate the production of educators and students of each other? And so, yes, our evaluation systems are on many levels not adequate. But there are academicians who have recognized these issues as research, and they continue to enhance our understandings of evaluative science. You know why? Because those people, those researchers, those academicians, they're advocates too. You see, we're surrounded by advocates. The thing that I want you as an advocate, because that must be why you're here today. That must be why you tuned in to me today. What I want to encourage you to do, speak up, tell somebody, reach out, grab on to someone who can take your ideas, your knowledge, your research, and make a difference. That's the purpose of today. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're looking at when we go through these things. I'm not saying that teachers don't need to be evaluated. Pish posh. I'm not saying that students don't need to be evaluated. No. I'm just saying that it can be done by looking at a strengths model instead of a deficit model. Same idea, kicking it back to mental health education. We can look at concepts, let's say 24 Core Human Strengths by Christopher Peterson. It's a handbook, a classification that talks about the strengths of a human being, of a child, as opposed to like the DSM, where we're looking at the pathologies of the child. Examine both, but let's hone in on a strength model instead of a deficit model. I'm going to pause for a second. This is how teachers are evaluated. Some of the ways, shall I say. I'm in a situation here in Washington, D.C., where I get all of those in the top yellow quote. Classroom observation, value-added measures, and yes, student surveys. How you like me now? That creates a bit of an itch for some teachers. Got to make sure you're getting those kiddos on a happy day. Maybe a pizza party is in order. Is that what we're doing for evaluations? What are the ideas? What are we coming up with? Let's be creative. Let's transcend. Let's move beyond what we currently are using as antiquated practices and open up new ideas. Well, what kind of ideas, Stacey Adams? Let's discuss when I have more than an hour from my presentation. I found some additional resources that I would be remiss not to share. We see here Dr. Shanice Campbell. She is a professor of mine at the University of Pittsburgh, and she has done extensive work on evaluation systems and services that we're currently using in our country. And if you're looking for more information about this topic, I encourage you to research her work or to shoot her an email. Also, Jay, and I do apologize, the name McTig. I actually know two people with that last name and they pronounce it differently. So here it is on the screen. He's known around the world. His research is huge. And I encourage you to look into it and find out what you can learn, how you can explore, how you can expound upon his work, or maybe contact him and work with him so that we can change the game. Moving on. It's time. We're halfway through, which means I get to put my hair up because it's hot in here. And as human beings, I'm sure you can appreciate that girl has a lot of hair on her head. We're halfway through. This is the mark. Part 3, there are 4. When there's too much sand in the bucket, sticking to that beach theme, I'm ready, y'all. The sand at the bottom, it gets compacted and it doesn't feel the warmth of the sun, while other sand falls completely out of the bucket because the bucket is overflowing. Based on this scenario, can you complete this analogy? The bucket is to the classroom as the sand is to the, we're going to talk about redesigned class sizes. This has been an issue since, I want to say since Hector was a pup, but I'll go ahead and take it back to since my first year of teaching. And probably beyond when I was a student, but just didn't recognize what was going on around me from a teacher perspective. Redesigning class sizes, it's a big deal. It's been a big deal, like I said, for quite some time. Because I'm here working as a national trainer for the American Federation of Teachers, I would be quite remiss not to highlight our the president for the American Federation of Teachers, Randi Weingarten. These quotes regarding class size, they're all from her. There's not enough political will to lower class sizes. You know what that means? Advocate. What we should be doubling down on right now is lowering class size. How do we do that? Advocate. Align health and pedagogical best practices. Hello, COVID. By reducing class size. She says, smaller class sizes have been shown to have a positive impact on academic achievement. We want that. Safety. Maslow says we need that. And suspension rates, as well as teacher retention. I shudder to think of the differences in the number of available teachers after COVID. It's been stressful for some of my coworkers. It's been stressful for me. But we need advocates to stay in the game so that we can continue to have powerful, dynamic educators reaching our students. We are our best advocates. There's no one who can grab another teacher and say, hey, come on, stick with it, man. Like we can. There's no one who can just pester lobbyists and lawmakers and policymakers like a teacher can. There are some basics for class sizes. Taking it all the way back, understanding how we got this idea of, oh yeah, a class can have 40 students and still be productive. It's outdated. Let's change it. 40 is too many. I remember when I first started teaching in Atlanta public schools. I was teaching 4th grade at that time too. Whoop, whoop, shout out to 20 years ago. Imagine a desk, it's a rectangle, right? I had students sitting around the desk like water of a peninsula. 3 kids, 1 desk. I mean, I'm an incredible teacher, so learning was happening, but imagine if I had enough space, freedom, materials, resources, finances, for each student to have their own doggone desk. 40 is too many. Doggone it, 30 is too many. With these large class sizes and the pandemic came, it's like, I have all these kids on a computer. Half are on the computer, half are in the school, one teacher doing a little bit of everything. Come on, man. That's not productive. Small school movements. They came in with a vengeance. And they're starting to fizzle out. Why do we want these smaller class sizes? I'll just tell you, from me as a teacher, it's not so that I can teach 10 kids and be done and then sit down and put my feet up on my desk during the day. No, it's so that I can get into what those 10, 15 students are really learning. Find out what are your strengths and how do I build upon that? See that? Strengths versus deficit. It's so that I can actually use my planning time to plan and prepare instead of just trying to catch up with the runaround. Smaller class sizes hasn't gone away. Educators are still looking for it. Advocates are still fighting for it. And we've got to keep on striving. There are, however, some really great teachers who have found ways to succeed and strive despite the obstacles of so many kids in their learning grasp. When we have smaller class sizes, like, why should we advocate for this? What are we looking for? Increased learning for all students, significantly lower dropout rates. The graduation rate for free lunch students more than doubled, and their likelihood of graduating closed the gap with non-poor students. Higher grades, children from quote unquote poor and minority backgrounds who experience twice the gains as the average student, and estimates that are reducing class size in early grades shrink this achievement gap, also known as opportunity gap, by about 38%. Yet and still, we notice great discrepancy between averages of public schools, student-teacher ratio, versus private schools, student-teacher ratio. How can we make a difference? Advocate. These resources came from an advocate, from Class Size Matters. ClassSizeMatters.org boasts this work that a concerned parent created a nonprofit. A parent from New York City schools, 15 years she was a parent of New York City public schools. And so she started this nonprofit, Class Size Matters, a wealth of information. If you are looking for more resources on this topic, I encourage you to go there. Taking a look here at this map, this is 2018. And what you're seeing, the numbers that are represented in the states go right along with the title of the map. States with the most crowded classrooms. So maybe you see where you are, and maybe you see the color on the map. What this map does not differentiate is public versus private. This is a collaboration. So think about where you are on the map, and then think about where you are in your local community and or schoolhouse. How real are these numbers from your vantage point? Are you cool with that? If not, advocate. I broke this down and looked at some charts a little closely, and it was just astronomical to shrink it down so that I could get all 50 states. So I'm showing you the top 10 states with the largest class size by state. And notice how they come up with this average. So we're looking clearly at the chart, elementary, secondary, and then we have this average on the side. And again, this is a combination of public and private. The largest class sizes. Now I know I had more than 24 in 2018. That's just my reflection. So what am I doing about it? I'm advocating to who? You. Do you know someone who might be able to make a difference? Taking a look here, this is the latter end of the spectrum, right? So we're looking now at the smallest class sizes. So like the smallest numbers, we're looking at Maine. Where does your community stand? All right, y'all. We're moving on through. We're getting to the exciting end of this presentation. I have so much to share at the end. I hope that you do, in fact, stay tuned. I hope that you're here with me. All right. Question number 4. Now, if you remember from the beginning of the presentation, we have 4 areas, if you will, that we're looking at today, which means this is the 4th one, and we're coming down to a time of reflection. Almost, not quite. Yet and still, sticking with this theme of the beach. It's summertime, and I am living vicariously through these slides. I hope you are enjoying them. It took me a considerable amount of time to get those sandcastles in the sky. The question we have here, is it too late to rebuild our current educational structures that are seemingly similar to sandcastles built in the sky? We've talked about today so far a reimagined curriculum. We've talked about redesigned class structures. We've talked about, and not exactly in this order, re-examining evaluation systems. I reversed the last 2. You're following me, right? You're following me. Those are the first 3. And we're talking about all these changes that can ideally be made in this 21st century. Mind you, it's 2021. We're moving through here. Like Heidi Jacobs' questions, what are we preparing our students for? The 21st century? Because by the time some of them graduate, it's going to be halfway over. Is it too late? We talk about, in our 4th section, rebuilding these structures. Rebuilding these structures that are like, that could be like sandcastles floating in the sky. Maybe not the strongest foundation for children of the global majority. For those of you, pause for the cause. For those of you who were like, yeah, she said that in the beginning. She said she was first a teacher, and then an international educator, and then an urban educator. And now she calls herself a child advocate for the children of the global majority. What is that? Well, I'll tell you what that is. It's a phrase that select folks from the collective, let me just go ahead and break it down to you. Spellhouse, which means my Spellman sisters and my Morehouse brothers, we have decided that we are not comfortable with the phrase POC, people of color. Why? Why is that a pullout? We are the people of the global majority. Recognize. And so, as a child advocate for the children of the global majority, we talk about rebuilding structures. Well, Stacey Adams, by the way, that's me. That's who y'all are listening to, me, Stacey Adams. So you might be like, Stacey Adams, why do we need to rebuild the structures? They're already there. But as no secret has been kept, Our education system here in the United States of America was not initially designed for the people of the global majority. That was not the purpose. And so these structures that we've been building upon are built upon a foundation that no longer serves the collective. So we need to rebuild these structures. In order for that to happen, I'm starting at the top of the slide and I'm working my way down, folks. Stay right there with me. We have to think about how we are utilizing teachers. Are we utilizing or viewing teachers as babysitters? Because I promise you, that's the last thing on my to-do list when I'm in a classroom, or shall I say in my living room on the computer, teaching virtually. How are we utilizing our teachers? Are we valuing our teachers? Are we helping our teachers? Are we educating our teachers? We have to begin to recognize that not only is this the time to speak up for advocacy, but this is also the time for collaboration. You see, there's like this theme, this underlying cutthroat system within the teacher world in our country where we're faced with more competition than collaboration. Sometimes it makes teachers not want to share their research, their finds. And the reason that they may not want to share this research and their finds is because we have to remember, we have the same person coming evaluating me as you have coming evaluating you. And if I give you the goose, then she or he, my administrator, is going to see that you got all the juice and I'm left with a repeat, a drought, not doing it as well. Wrong-o. That's a structural rebuild that's necessary. This collaboration versus competition atmosphere among educators, administrators, it's got to change. It's got to end. We're going to continue to keep fighting at each other instead of actually growing up and making a difference. So when we talk about rebuilding structures, that's one. When we talk about rebuilding structures, we've got to really be able to focus on this willingness to change. You see that there at the top of the screen. If we internally are not willing to change, then we won't. You've got to subscribe to it. You've got to be ready to buy in to what's happening for the greater good. A willingness, willing. That's like taking a leap for change. All right, Stacey Adams. So I hear you. We've got to make sure that we're outlining how we're utilizing our teachers and respecting our teachers. We've got to be able to work on this collaboration versus competition type thing, because if we don't, then we're not going to grow and we're not going to expand the way that we want to. We've got to actually be willing to do the work, not just talk about it. It's fabulous if I walk around here and practice this presentation with my kitty cat, little Bagheera, you know, from the Jungle Book. Come on. But if I'm not opening my mouth and speaking up and asking you as a fellow advocate to get on board, I'm wasting it. I'm wasting my energy. I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting this beautiful ponytail. We have to be willing to change. Some of us are too stuck on these Carnegie units. We're interested in, okay, are they sitting down? Are they facing front? Are their feet on the floor? Is their back against the chair? Is their pencil at an angle? It's not fun. It's a lot of work. The joy of learning is dissipating while we're focused on these Carnegie units where we have to have 120 hours with a contact instructor in high school earning 18 to 24 units. Yeah, but you earn these units, but what do you know, dear kid? What do you know? Your kids behaved, dear educator, but what have they learned, dear educator? What have they learned? Your teachers are sticking to the script, administrators. But how are your students doing? How are your teachers feeling? When we rebuild structures currently that are limited, right? Like there's some really good ideas out there, but there's also a lot of limited follow through. I'm thinking it before I'm even reading it on my slide. I hear my daddy's voice in the back of my head talking about it's go time. That's what time it is. We're recognizing that we need to rebuild these structures. We've got critical race theory and culturally responsive pedagogy and anti-racist pedagogy and restorative practices. But guess what? It's more than a checklist, folks. It's not about, okay, I did that and I, did that and I, okay, I'll do that today. And then I'll be a culturally responsive teacher. Yep, that'll make me anti-racist by 3 o'clock. Psych. You actually have to work at this. There is a lot of in-depth, deep training for self-recognition and acknowledgement and a willingness to change in order for these ideas and practices to follow through and to become something. Follow through. We've got pacing guides that are completely canned. We've got teacher scripts. You know, coming back to the United States after traveling abroad, I actually had an administrator go over a debrief with me. And that administrator said, okay, Miss Adams, so what I need you to improve upon is I need you to stick to the script. Excuse me? In case you can't tell, I'm not a stick to the script type of chick. I go for it. I feel what I'm talking about, what I'm teaching, what I'm expressing, what I'm begging educators, academicians, policymakers, lawmakers, the vice president, the president, congressfolk, whoever is listening to me now, hear my voice and advocate for something different. Advocate for a change in our regular basic grading system, which is running a basic A through an F, a basic 4 through a 1, depending upon where you are. I can't give a kid a 3.5. You're either getting a 3 or you're getting a 5. There's no 3.7. You're either in or you're not. And that's what the kids think. I'm either in or I'm not. I either get it or I don't. Our systems are not currently, our structures are not currently set up for students to explore, to learn more, to want to learn more through exploring. Inquiry, problem-based projects. I gotta let me take that back. I've had to in the past, kind of like sneak them in. Just sneak them in there. It's kind of like I was looking at Principal Kafele from last year, 2020, and he talked about how when he started his teaching practices, he would teach and close the door. And it really made me chuckle in the bowels of my belly when I think about how, for me, sometimes teaching hasn't changed more than it did back in slavery days. When the massa came into the room, we put the broom away. And we pulled the broom out and we're, yes, a massa, yes, a massa. The massa leaves, we're pulling up the floorboards, we're taking out the books, and we're teaching each other how to read. It's 2021, and I'm doing the same thing. Hint, hint, dear principal, I love you too. However, sometimes in order for my principal to do what it is that they have to do, I got to play the game too. So sometimes when the principal comes to the room, I shh, shh, shh. When the principal leaves, we're tearing up the floorboards and finding out what's underneath. I encourage you to advocate, do the same. So I ask you here, as I get ready to conclude our presentation today, not what will you advocate for, but why? Why will you advocate for reimagined curriculum? Why? What's the passion? What's the fire? What's the reason that you're going to advocate for a re-examined evaluation systems? Why? What drives you to advocate for redesigned class sizes? Why? What is your purpose-driven rationale for advocating for rebuilding educational structures? This to me is like my beach ball. You feel my beach theme, y'all? Why will you advocate? You can become an advocate today. We talked about these 4 different domains. Reimagined curriculum. How can you advocate today? Lobby those who create that curriculum and those policy changes. Reimagined evaluation systems, moving over to the far right of the screen. How do you do that? Hey, tell policymakers about fair and equitable systems. Reimagined class sizes. How do you advocate for that? You know, you could write a letter and put a stamp on it, or you could make social media posts directed to, for your local mayor and chancellor or school board or superintendent. Let them hear you. How do you advocate for redefined structures? Reach beyond your own sphere and create some good trouble. We know that advocacy is happening in a positive way, but it's not quite where we need to be yet. Climate change, that's not just happening in our physical environment. Got some questions for you. So we've been talking now for just about an hour. You made it. There's one more exciting thing. Don't log off just yet. You got to get through and see your credits and see if you can answer these questions that we talked about. The questions are easy. They're yes or no. So all you've got to do is answer 4 yes or no questions that reflect upon our 4 domains of discussion today. Consider discussing the validity of your response as with someone who maybe didn't hear today's discussion, or maybe a colleague or a fellow academician that you're sitting near, and you might be able to inspire them or another advocate through this conversation. Not yet. I'm here. 1, are we preparing our children with adequate protection for the future? Yes or no? 2, are students, teachers, and administrators adequately assessed, or are we over-evaluating outdated information with antiquated practices? Yes or no? 3, the bucket is to the classroom as sand is to the student. Yes or no? And 4, is it too late to rebuild our current educational structures that are seemingly similar to sandcastles built in the sky? Yes or no? I remind you of our quote, a quote from our Vice President, Kamala Harris. You're never too young or too old to start being a leader. This is how we advocate. All right, y'all, you made it through the presentation. You made it through the questions at the end. Now here comes the fun. Are you ready? So not only am I your speaker for the day, or today, and an elementary school teacher, but I'm also a retired cheerleader from back in the day. And so, like my elementary school students, you get to hear a song. These are the words to the song. Hopefully, it gets stuck in your head like it's been stuck in my head, and you're literally singing it all day long. I recorded it on my phone to make sure that I could keep the melody and play it for you. So I'm going to play it here and then sing it with you one time. Are you ready? It goes like this. It's short, it's sweet. And my sound is off on my phone. So I will sing it instead. It goes like this. Let me try one more time. We are our best advocates. We're changing trajectory out the gate. When someone asks you, what do I do? Just tell them, advocate, advocate, advocate. You got it? It's like the happy birthday song. It's so easy. Okay, here we go. We are our best advocates. We're changing our trajectory. When someone asks you, what do I do? Just tell them, advocate, advocate, advocate. You know how they say the birthday song is perfect for when you're washing your hands to make sure that you're washing your hands long enough? You can do that. We are our best advocates. We're changing our trajectory. When someone asks you, what do I do? Just tell them, advocate, advocate, advocate. Thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for your emotions. Thank you for your willingness to listen and to possibly change and to hopefully be an advocate. Have a great day.